Hi, and welcome to Week 4 of Hyper Juken Alpha Block Set 1, the new challenges preview season. As we are only 2 weeks away from the Kickstarter launching, weeks 4 and 5 will have 3 preview videos, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, each one centered around a KATA card. We start today with Lucy's Keyflow Form 1. As I said when I first showed Lucy, she can race to her hyper form at sonic speed. It's not uncommon for her to reach Hyper Lucy on her initial turn, and this is one of the tools to do that. Keyflow Form 1 raises Lucy's Hyper 2 when an effect sends a card to your key pool. I haven't said it straight out yet, and the Kickstarter will launch with a how to play video, but I think you might be getting an inkling on how the key system works by now if you've been watching every preview video. Lucy has a couple of cards that send cards to her key pool, one of which can be shuffled back into the arsenal for multiple uses. Lucy can easily gain upwards of 6 hyper over a game via Keyflow Form 1, and when paired with a bevy of cards that raise her hyper naturally, with Hyper Lucy's ability to draw cards and some other tools at her disposal, Lucy having Keyflow Form 1 in her corner is pivotal to her gaining momentum and eventually attaining victory. Speaking of effects that send cards to your key pool, here's one of them. Energetic Kick is a level 0 attack, meaning it costs nothing to perform, with 2 power and a hit effect to send the top card of your arsenal to your key pool. This is both one of Lucy's best opening attacks and a superb tool to gain momentum. If you open with it, your opponent will want to block it. It denies you additional key and 2 hyper, but that costs them a block. You can use that to your advantage to get a harder hitting attack to make contact. On the other hand, if you use other tools first, try to get an idea of what they have in their hand, you can spring Energetic Kick on them later in combat, after you have already baited their blocks, and it will make contact. Gain an additional key, raise your hyper, potentially be in hyper form. While Energetic Kick is one of 2 cards that gives Lucy additional key, the very act of gaining additional key is very important. It means Lucy can start putting her focus on level 2 attacks to hit harder, have better chances of doing large amounts of damage, and that damage going through. Lucy's arsenal has 2 cards with the hyper fighting keyword. The Burst Takedown we saw in week 1, and today's Burst Power Strike. Burst Power Strike is another one of those cards that might not seem like much on face value, but when taken in context is quite the potent tool. The real issue Burst Power Strike faces is that it's nowhere near as flashy as the 2 level 2 attacks in Lucy's arsenal. But don't let that fool you. As a level 1 attack, it's a net 0 in key, unlike a level 2, which are a drain on your resources. Base 4 power as per norm. Attack to raise your hyper 1. So even if Lucy isn't in hyper form, she gets something. Then if she is in hyper form, it gains 2 power, being the same base power as a level 2 attack, but with only chip 1 from Hyper Lucy that the chip 2 it would have had if it were a level 2 attack. It's an 8 power slog to the face. If it makes contact and nothing is prevented, like the level 2 attacks, it's 20% of your opponent's arsenal gone in a flash. Drawing into Burst Power Strike is just as good as drawing into either of the level 2 attacks. Keep up the flurry of heavy hitting blows. Thank you for watching. Come back next time when we look at Elotono's first KATA and get a better understanding of how he functions. Hi and welcome to the continuing week 4 previews for Hyper Juken Alpha Block Set 1, the new challenges. As we continue looking at a KATA card for each of the fighters, Lucy, Elotono and Taichi, we get a better understanding of what their game plan is. Today we continue with Elotono's Rejuvenation Form 1. Over the 3 cards today, we will start getting a good look at just how powerful Elotono performing Forceful Ki Blast really is. Rejuvenation Form 1 raises your Hyper 1 each time you heal due to an effect. Now this is heal period, not per card. If you heal 2 cards at once, heal 2, you will only gain 1 hyper from this, and that is where Forceful Ki Blast starts getting really good. It's 3 instances of Heal 1 with El Eterno, Attack Heal 1, Hit Heal 1, from El Eterno, Hit Heal 1. If it connects, that's 3 Hyper in addition to the 7 card swing. But the best part, you still don't have the full picture. For El Eterno, Forceful Ki Blast is the gift that keeps on giving, and this isn't even talking about Forceful Ki Blast and Rejuvenation Form 1 in other builds during future sets. Nudge nudge. Rejuvenation Form 1, while not El Eterno's only source of Hyper, it is his main one. When you get some momentum going, you can get 2, maybe 3 Hyper in one shot, thanks to this card. Like most of the KATA we'll be talking about over this week and next, as future sets release and more cards are introduced to the card pool, Rejuvenation Form 1 only gets better. One of 2 highly synergistic level 0 attacks in El Eterno's arsenal. When Light Life Kick is healed from your exhaust, it raises your Hyper 1. If you pay for Forceful Ki Blast with Light Life Kick, that's 2 Hyper. If it's among a group of cards you heal, that's 2 Hyper. It doesn't do anything as an attack, but that's the point of a lot of level 0 attacks. Setup. That's the beauty of Light Life Kick though. While you can use it in tandem with Forceful Ki Blast or other cards that heal, even if it's just the threat of healing it via a hit effect, if it's just in the exhaust as damage, you can still get to heal it, get an additional 1 Hyper, and it's done its job. Finally, we get to Resourceful Punch, a level 1 4 power attack with the attack effect to raise your Hyper 1 and the ability to mold your hand to your liking. When it would be healed from your exhaust, you can discard a card to place it into your hand instead. How it works is, you never actually heal it, as the hand filter is a replacement effect instead. If it is the only card you would heal, Rejuvenation Form 1 will not raise your Hyper as you never healed anything. If you would heal more than 1 card and this is on top, its trigger effect interrupts the heal, then you continue with the effect. Heal 3 and Resourceful Punch is among them. The effect tries to heal it, then the trigger effect replaces the heal with a hand filter, then the remaining 2 cards have healed, one of which being the card you discarded. Hand filter is always good. You can get something out you don't want, you don't need, or can't use. Get in a decent attack. It's also level 1, meaning El Eterno gives it Hit Heal 1, so now it has the threat to be a 5 card swing, and via Rejuvenation Form 1, 2 Hyper. One also has to consider that El Eterno doesn't really like using level 2 attacks as much as level 1, and only needs so much ki over a game. You can time your entire play to discard things you don't want for Resourceful Punch. While not as important as Forceful Ki Blast, Resourceful Punch is a potent tool in El Eterno's arsenal. Both cards are the backbone of his offense. Thank you for watching. Come back next time when we look at Taichi's first KATA and the first example of a card type exclusive to yellow. Hi and welcome to the final video for week 4 of the Hyper Juken Alpha Block Set 1, the new challenges preview season. Today is Taichi's day and we look at not only his first KATA card, a card that really emphasizes his personality, but our first card with a secondary type. Let's start with Retribution Form 1. Yellow has a bit of a theme surrounding hit effects. Not only does Yellow like to inflict damage, but adds Salt to the Wound. Salt to the Wound coming in A2. With Retribution Form 1, if your opponent does stop you in your tracks, you at least get something. If your attack with an original hit effect is blocked, raise your Hyper 2. Original is printed on the card, not given to it by an effect. So your opponent either takes the damage and the effect, or they allow you to raise your Hyper 2, pushing you to either Hyper Form or your Hyper Attack. Taichi's arsenal has 4 different attack cards with an original hit effect for a total of 16 cards, just under half his arsenal. Most of the time, the hit effects are so detrimental to your opponent, they will just let you have the 2 Hyper. Your opponent really doesn't want Taichi's effects to stick, which in turn gives him the ability to bait their blocks, remove them, fueling both Sniper Beam and Demon Wind Slash. Hyper Juken has cards that have a secondary typing, becoming either buffs or debuffs. Buffs help you, debuffs hinder your opponent. Buffs are typically found in red and blue, while debuffs are found in yellow. Cards with a secondary typing can only be performed or used from your hand as their primary type. Key Disruptor here has to be performed as an attack. Then, when the conditions are met, the card can stay in play when it resolves, becoming a buff or debuff by turning upside down. For Key Disruptor, the condition is its hit effect, so it needs to inflict damage. Still using Key Disruptor as an example, it is considered to be a card that can become a debuff with a continuous effect in every zone, as other cards can look at its secondary typing and check the effects in its secondary text box. When cards with secondary typing become their secondary typing, it's transformative. They lose their original typing and effects while in play. You may only have one copy of any buff or debuff out at any time. If a second copy becomes its secondary typing under your control, the initial copy is neutralized, sent to its owner's exhaust. With all of the gameplay explanation out of the way, let's talk Key Disruptor. Key Disruptor is a level 1 attack with 4 power, the hit effect to raise your Hyper 2, and the effect keyword status effect. So it has to inflict damage to access its debuff form. Nothing special yet. As a debuff, however, Key Disruptor can really put a spanner in the game plan of your opponent, especially El Eterno. It forces a replacement effect on your opponent where the cards they send from their key pool to their exhaust to pay for effects are removed from the game instead. It does affect Lucy a little, she can get back some cards, it also affects Taichi a little too, but El Eterno's whole gimmick is healing. Now he has to decide, do I want to lose this card permanently? El Eterno in particular wants to block Key Disruptor, so as Taichi, you really need to bait him out with other cards or even throw multiple Key Disruptors at him in a row till one sticks. This will cost El Eterno Hyper, as he has nothing to heal, and generally force him into a more aggro game plan he can't play well. Finally, we have Surprising Leg Sweep, a level 0 attack with 2 power that has the attack effect of lowering your opponent's Hyper 1 and removing the top 2 cards of their exhaust from the game. Surprising Leg Sweep is one of those cards that really helps Taichi speed up his personal game plan by removing anything that might be there, including blocks. This is one of the most efficient ways Taichi has to remove your opponent's cards from the game. 2 here, 2 there, along with his own hit effect, Key Disruptor, and other cards in his arsenal, this adds up a lot over a game. It's also the first card we've seen that lowers Hyper, something far more detrimental to Taichi and El Eterno. Lucy can just take it on the chin and blaze past it for the time being, but El Eterno and Taichi have normal hyper speed. Taking too many lowerings will ultimately lock them out of their level 3 hyper attacks unless they play very smart. Thank you for watching. Come back next week for the final bout of previews before the Kickstarter goes live. We're looking at the second KATA card for each fighter and some other really cool stuff.